Beautiful, got that part.
Yeah. Got it. We're ready.
All right, beautiful. How good it is, sweet it is.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Good morning. It is good to be here with you who are here and you who are joining us from wherever you are in the world. My name is Dusty Class. This is my soft launch at this congregation. Hard launch will be next Friday night. And Eran is also joining us. And is this your soft launch, or would you say you've been here?
I would call it a soft launch.
Okay, so we're both soft launching
Yes.
this morning, and we are grateful to have you here with us to soft launch, because otherwise it would not make sense for us to be here doing anything at all. So we're going to begin with a little warm-up to make sure we're all in Shabbat mode, and so we'll continue with Modeh Ani on page, I don't know, we'll find out.
Is it 75?
It might be 75, let's see. It is not.
68.
68. There we go. Sounds good. On page 76, we find the words of Asher Yatzar, a blessing I have always appreciated, but appreciate even more now that I have a tiny human being whose openings and closings I get to pay attention to a lot. So we'll pray together in the middle of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. Page 78. Page 80 and 82 and 84, we find Nisim B'chol Yom, these daily miracles that generally happen every day, and because they happen every day, we often forget that in fact they are each of their own accord miracles. Instead of chanting them, I'm going to invite you to take 60 seconds, I'll time us, and find one of these miracles that you are particularly grateful for on this day. And we're going to ask you to share. So you do actually have to do the exercise of figuring out which one is most meaningful. 60 seconds on the clock, starting now. Sixty seconds complete. All right, who is willing to share? Go for it. Mm-hmm.
Praise to Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive at this point. Very plain.
Amen.
Amen.
Indeed. Anyone else? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As a Jew by choice, I'm happy that God's made me a Jew.
Me too. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So for strengthening our steps and freeing the captive and those understandings, right, as the ability to stretch and the gift of motion, the ability to stretch also jumped out at me today, right, like that alternative understanding of freeing the captive. Because when I woke up this morning, I turned my neck one way and then it was very hard to turn it the other way, which is perhaps like a lifting and putting down thing, but I too am going to be stretching later today, and this was a really good reminder. So for all of these blessings, amen, amen. Yes, yes, for a mental stretching. And speaking of mental stretching, we continue on page 86 with the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And on the middle of page 88, we'll offer the blessing together in English. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. Continue with Hatzi Kaddish on page 90.
גדל והתקדש שמי רבה ועלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביום יחון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויהיו אמן יהי שם רבה מבורך לעלם ולעדי עמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לעילם כל מנחתה ושירתה ושמחתה ומלחמתה תמירם בעלמה
We rise and turn to page 108 for the words of Baruch Hu. Here's a question. Do you sit or stand through Shema? Sit. Please be seated. We continue. Who's leading? Who's the boss? You're the boss. You could choose to stand or sit at any time. I am not actually in charge of you. However, as is the custom, it seems, of this place, you may be seated if you would like.
I thought
we'll
it was
continue.
a philosophical question.
There
It
is
was both.
also philosophy in there.
Of course, always.
On the top of page 111, we'll offer a blessing for creation. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. So here's the next question. Do you stand back up for Shema or do you stay seated for Shema? You stay seated. All right. So we're just up for Baruch Hu. Phenomenal.
Understanding is, if you're gonna stand for Shema, you stand for the Re'ah.
So better to sit. Yeah.
Double sitting or?
There you go.
Before we continue with the Shema, I want to encourage us and do a little breathing exercise. I think conscious breathing is such a powerful tool that I was introduced to way too late in life. And even closing our eyes and consciously breathing for 10 seconds can be so valuable. So I invite you to close your eyes if it is your custom to put your hand on your eyes or just keep them closed. And I'm going to make some sounds, and you can listen to the sounds. You can let the sounds kind of just be in the background. You can let your thoughts scatter. You can try to clear your mind. But most importantly, try to focus on your breath. Take a deep breath. We continue with the V'ahavta on page 116.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו
ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם.
אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. לכם אמת.
Emet. Page 121 in the middle of the page. I'll invite you to pray responsively with me. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up a sword against nation, not learn war anymore.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Micha Mocha, page 122.
Another interactive one. So we're going to get to the second part. Let's try that for a second. When I sing Noah,
Nora,
Tehilot,
Tehilot,
Ose,
Ose,
Fele,
Fele,
Noah,
Nora,
Tehilot,
Tehilot,
Ose,
Ose, Fele.
Good. From the beginning. Here we go. Noah,
Nora,
Tehilot,
Tehilot,
Ose,
Ose,
Fele,
Fele,
Noah,
Nora,
Tehilot,
Tehilot,
Ose,
Fele.
שירה חדשה. שירה חדשה, שירים גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני
Adonai,
ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני
Adonai,
ימלוך
Yimloch,
לעולם
Leolam,
ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדינומך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Continue on page 124 and continue through 130 together.
שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, זוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחלקי חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצליח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא זה את זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently through the remainder of the Amidah, and you may be seated when you feel completed.
Before we proceed with Sefirah, let's take one more big inhale, this time together. Can we try that? Let's stretch from our nose and exhaling through our mouths. So kind of like try to watch my cue and start to do it as together as we can.
Shalom. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום We turn to page 244 and we rise for the Torah service.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אב הרחמים, היטיבה לרצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך ערם ונישא, אדון עולמים. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו. גדול אדוני איתי, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד. כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני הממלכה, והמתנשא לכל ראש.
All right. And will you help me get the dress off this Torah? Thank you. Awesome. You may be seated. All right. I'm going to talk a little about Torah, and then we'll chant some Torah. So our Torah portion this week is Korach, which is Numbers chapter 16, and I'll be reading verses 1 through 5. I don't know which page that is, but I can find it for us. Page 1 on the nose. Oh, so close to on the nose. Yep, there we go. 1003. So you don't have to hear my voice this whole time. Would somebody be willing to read the English of verses 1 through 5? Yes. Yeah, come up here, and then the folks on live stream will be able to hear you too. I know I didn't warn you you'd be having to
That's okay.
show
Okay,
the world.
So starting from 16:1?
16:1 through 16:5, yeah.
Now Korach, son of Ishar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, betook himself along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moshe, together with 250 representatives of the Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly with fine reputations. They combined against Moshe and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Eternal is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above the Eternal's congregation?" Go on.
Keep
Where
going.
am I
Yeah,
going?
two more
Okay.
verses.
When Moshe heard this, he fell on his face. Then he spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, "Come morning, the Eternal will make known who is God's and who is holy, and will grant direct access. The one whom God has chosen will be granted access."
All right. Thank you. I always think it's nice to know what it is that's being said in Hebrew. And if you're like me, at least, you're not fluent in Hebrew. So it's useful to have a sense of what's going on. So, Korach is a well-known Torah portion of the Torah portions that are known. Because what happens after this, right, is that Korach and his men do indeed come to God and see who is right and who is wrong, and God's response is to swallow them, right, into the earth. So now we know who's right and who's wrong. Maybe not. What is so interesting about this Torah portion is that on the face of it, when you just read these words, it sounds like a really valid question, right? Like, who made you Moses? Moses, right? Who made you in charge of everybody? If as God said at Sinai, we are all holy, every single one of us, why is there a hierarchy at all? On the face of it, that sounds like a really great question. However, the rabbis teach that it was not, in fact, such an innocent question that really had to do with everybody being holy, everybody having an equal amount of power. Why is it that some people are raised above other people? The question was instead driven by a desire for power. And because of this, it was not, as we talk about often in Judaism, a machlochet l'shem shemaim. It was not an argument for the sake of heaven. It was an argument for the sake of something else. And so I wanted to bring two texts that I thought beautifully kind of speak to this understanding of what it means to be l'shem shemaim or not. And the first text is from Kli Yakar, and it's on Genesis, and it speaks to the concept of shemaim, l'shem shemaim, something being for the sake of shemaim, of the heavens or of peace, and how that came to be the good kind of argument. So, Kli Yakar writes, God, on the second day, God names the firmament heaven. In Hebrew, those words are rakia and shemaim. So rather than calling the firmament rakia, which is what it is, God calls the firmament shemaim. Why? Because God didn't want to call it rakia, because rakia is a covering that separates between two things. And that indicated division and disagreement. So God didn't want to name the firmament because God didn't want to give it a name that would indicate separation or disagreement. I know, the rabbis are great. That's why, in fact, it doesn't say it was good, right? So at the end of every day of creation, God says, and it was good, except for on the second day. Why not? Because disagreement was created on the second day. This rakia was created on the second day, so there's no good in disagreement. There's only good in a place where we find unity. Therefore, on the third day, we get two it was goods, right? We get it was good twice. Once because of everything that happens on the third day, and once for the finishing of the water. So when it says that the waters were gathered to one place, right, that was a sense of unification. And so that repaired the rakia that was created on the second day. So you get your second, it was good. And God, this is additional, right? God didn't want the sky to be called firmament. So we already know that that indicates something that separates. So God called it Shemayim. Why Shemayim? That indicates peace. Why peace? Because Shemayim is composed of the words Aish, which means fire, and Mayim, which means water. They made peace between themselves and joined together and formed the skies, right? So you get Shemayim. Now, does Shemayim actually come from Aish and Mayim? So the rabbis say. It's a beautiful teaching. We'll keep it. And this is why the rabbis state, any disagreement that is L'Shem Shemayim, for the sake of heaven, that disagreement is toward peace in this combination of fire and water, this unification of fire and water. Okay, so what does any of this have to do with Korach? Great question. So Bartanura has a comment on Pirkei Avot 5:17. So in Pirkei Avot 5:17, we get this phrase, every argument that's for the sake of heaven, it's that argument is destined to endure. That argument will stand. That's a good argument. You can argue if it's for the sake of heaven, according to Pirkei Avot. So what does that mean? That means that the people arguing are destined to endure and not perish, like Hillel and Shammai. We know about both Hillel and Shammai. Neither of them were swallowed by the earth. Their argument stands. But the followers of Korach, says this text, the arguers of Korach did perish. So what is the argument that's for the sake of heaven? It's an argument toward peace, and according to this text, the purpose and aim is to arrive at the truth, which is a complicated thing these days. But according to the rabbis, this truth endures. Because, as they said, from a dispute, the truth will be clarified. And this I find to be true, that when you are in argument, whichever point you have, you're going to refine it through that argument. Particularly if it's an argument where the goal is to help refine the arguments, to help get toward a truth, the truth. We might have different opinions about how many truths there are in the world. So that's why Hillel and Shammai worked, because their argument was toward refining their points and their arguments, and they did involve arriving at a truth. And at the end of the day, they agreed that the law of Hillel would stand, but that didn't mean that the law of Shammai was to disappear out of the world. It endured. However, the argument that's not for the sake of heaven, its desired purpose is to achieve power and for the love of contention. Or, as some you may have heard, to play devil's advocate is how I like to think about this for the sake of contention. If you've ever had someone argue with you because they want to argue, but they don't actually care about the point they're trying to make, they just want to argue the point. If you've ever been on the other side of that deep frustration of arguing against a really good arguer, but they're just arguing to argue, it's not useful. And Korach is not arguing for the sake of heaven. He's not even arguing just to argue. He's arguing for power. And that argument ultimately, according to the rabbis, doesn't endure. As I was learning these texts and studying these texts, I was thinking about our world. And I'll be brief because we want to chant Torah and we want to make sure we get out of here before tomorrow. And we could talk a lot about the ways in which this text either connects or doesn't connect to our world. But what I will say is that there's short lenses and long lenses in life. And whether or not and how truth endures, and whether or not and how power plays out can be looked at in a short lens or a long lens. And I think right now, a lot of people are stuck in the short lens of looking at where we are, both in truth and in power. And for some people, that might be a positive, looking at that short lens might be positive, and for some people, looking at through that short lens might look a little concerning or negative. And what I think the message of this Torah portion for me is to remember that the long lens, this enduring lens, the lens that takes us all the way to the end, is the lens that moves toward L'Shem Shamayim. So some Torah. All right, for the Aliyah today, if you have ever resolved a disagreement, ever, or in like recent enough memory that you can think of the agreement that was resolved, you are invited to join me on the bima for the Aliyah. Yes, there you go. Oh, we got it. You've been resolving arguments all morning, I'm sure.
Distraction to resolve arguments.
Yes, it sure does. This Torah is so fun to read from because I've been only reading from the Tiny Family Torah for 2 years now. And the teeny tiny Torah is literally this big, so the writing is 1/4. I opened this Torah this morning and I was like, I can read every word of this. Anyhow, it was very exciting.
Heavier but clearer.
Incredibly heavy and much clearer. If anyone wants to, there you go. All right, whenever you're ready.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehat ben Levi v'Datan v'Aviram b'nei Eliav v'On ben Pelet b'nei Reuven Vayakumu lifnei Moshe v'anashim mibnei Yisrael 50 u'matayim Nisi'ei Edat Kri'ei Moed Anshe Shem Vayikahalu Al Moshe Ve'al Aharon Vayomru Alehem Rav Lachem Ki Kol Ha'edah Kulam Kedoshim Uvtocham Adonai V'madua titnasu Al Kahal Adonai Vayishma Moshe Vayipol Al Panav Vayidaber El Korach Ve'al Kol Adato Lemor Boker Ve'ada Adonai, you got it. Adonai et asher lo ve'et hakadosh ve'hakriv elav ve'et asher yivchar vo yakriv elav.
Oh, beautiful prose.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Thank you. And congratulations on resolving your disagreements, whatever disagreements they were. Between children, each other, within your own self. So many reasons one could be arguing these days. Before we return the Torah to the Ark, we take a moment, always, to honor those in our community and in our lives who are ill, who are not well, who are in need of healing of body, mind, or spirit. I will share names from those in our community who are in need of healing, and then I will give us a moment to include any additional names that you may be thinking of today. So today we are praying on behalf of Amy Thornton, Stacy Hetzel, Jacqueline Tara Smith, Deborah Rose, Eileen Kreisman, Ronnie Haber, Ellen Gottlieb, Vanessa Bianco, Paul McCready, Glenn Letts, Carl Wilhite, Ginny Gaston, Cindy Balin, Patty Newby, Michelle Arrigo, Joni Michaels, Joe Giordano, Brian Ward, Joshua Kornbla, Joe Dover, Christina Marie Lindsay, Janine Morris, Margaret Nichols, M. Buktenica, Ron Louie, Barb Carmichael, Nina Winokur, Jamie Sanders, Elise Wagner, Susan Goldstein, Richard Apple, Jason Apple, Sally Waldison, Arnie Goldstein, Marnie Good, Arlene Schuster, and Sylvia Angel. Any other names we'd like to include today in our prayers for healing? All right, page 253, we find prayer for healing. Return the Torah to the Ark, and I'll ask for help briefly again in getting its clothes back on. Get her clothes back on. Where did they go? Okay.
זאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל אלוהים אדוני ביד משה.
עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותורה continue standing for Aleinu on the bottom of page 282 and then 285.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כדברי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. If you are remembering anyone whose name I call, please feel free to rise as you hear their name. We're in the period of Shloshim this month for Rhoda Jacobson, mother of Stu Jacobson, Mike Brock, stepfather of Mark Riamondo, stepfather-in-law to Karen, and step-grandfather to Connor and Aniela. Remembering Jenna Thrasher, friend of Lenora Blauman, Maurice Tans, father of Robin Negrin, Jackie Curran, congregant, Stanley Habib, father of David Habib, father-in-law of Kathy Habib and grandfather of Jason and Rachel, Jack Michael, husband of Margaret Michael and brother-in-law of Elizabeth Knopf, and Helen Weaver, sister of Susan Goldstein. And we remember at this yard site, this anniversary of their death, we honor Peggy Gianola, Esther Levy, Tressa Gervin, Amy Azen, Mario Forte, Faye Carras, Eleanor Morris, Ernie Ahrens, Eileen Levy, Norman Altschul, Frida Hager, Hank DeLind, and Sylvia Abelman Samet. Is anyone here observing a yard site or remembering someone they'd like to name before we continue? We rise as a community, offer the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yit kadal v'yit kadash shmei rabbah, ve'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayachon uvyomechon, uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yit barach, v'ishtabach, v'itpa'ar, v'itromam, v'itnaseh, v'ithadar, v'it'aleh, v'ithalal, shmei d'kudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Let's try one more.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Yes, let's do some Kiddush and Motzi, so we can Kiddush and Motzi. Who your short version? Ready?
Baruch atah Adonai